today are students in Canada. Now, Obazi, Principal Counsel at Obazi Law, and he's going to be presenting for us today. Just a couple ground rules. With all the information and as well as a little survey. Being transmitted live on Facebook and YouTube by the Brazilian show. Question by the Brazilian show. We'll best to answer during the transmission, or we'll do it after the presentation. We have a 15-minute Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm just, let me try and start up the video. There we go. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm trying to join the video right now, and let's see. Okay, just trying to work this video right now. Start video. So it says you cannot start video because the host has stopped you. Hello. Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. Still trying to work the video. It doesn't seem to allow me join. I'm not sure if if anyone can hear me right now. Okay, all right, so let's start. We'll just go with audio, I've been told. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Mr. Obazi. I'm a lawyer, and I'm here to speak to you today on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Canadian immigration for temporary residents. Specifically, today, temporary residents would be concerned with international students, and sometimes we may touch on work permits as is concerned with international students. Okay. So first of all, let's talk very briefly about the coronavirus disease. Okay, hold on. Let me try and put this in presentation mode, I've been told. Trying to put this in presentation mode. Okay. Hold on. There we go. Okay, finally. So yeah, let's talk about briefly about the coronavirus disease. So we know it's an infectious disease caused by a newly developed coronavirus, and these are some brief stats on the countries that are affected right now. So we have Canada seeing about over 4,000 confirmed cases, USA seeing over 85,000 confirmed cases, and Brazil seeing just over 2,980 confirmed cases. So now, what is the impact? So this disease has affected the economy, the healthcare system, and of course, migration, which is what we're dealing with right now. As an introduction, we are dealing in very uncertain times, and these uncertain times have caused unprecedented government reactions. Now, international students clearly they have concerns that have arisen as a result of this, disruption caused by the pandemic that we're dealing with right now. So international students are concerned as to how the COVID-19 pandemic may affect their travel and study plans. Students have growing concerns about the immigration application process. So, for example, renewal of temporary residence status, or your prospects as to, your post-study immigration. So, for example, the post-study work permit or post-graduation work permit. And then, of course, you have the concerns of travel and mobility. If you are an international student outside of the country currently, what impacts does that have for you traveling back to Canada or completing your program? So first things first, we have to stay informed because, like I mentioned earlier, we're dealing with very uncertain times and the government is reacting very quickly and sometimes impromptu to try and curb or manage this situation. So the essence is that the policies are ever changing. There is something new coming up and it's affecting us in different ways. So we need to stay informed with the current situation. First of all, we have to be aware of what the current IRCC policy, procedures, and regulations are. We have to be concerned with travel advisory. We have to pay attention to policies of the academic institutions that you will be dealing with. And of course, there are different government policies around the world. So you have to be aware of what the government policy is for any country that you're going to be dealing with. So say, for example, you're in Brazil and you want to travel, you need to know what the current situation is with in Brazil as far as travel and regulations go. Now, let's talk about the policies, procedures, and guidance used by the IRCC right now. So definitely, everyone is strongly encouraged to submit applications online. This may be obvious, but this is what the best practice is right now. I've read reports that paper applications are being processed much more slower than before. And so IRCCs, they're experiencing difficulties in receiving and processing applications submitted by mail or in person at the VAC office. Now, some of these VAC offices are closed until further notice. I've attached a link there to see which IRCC offices are closed. Biometric collection services at Service Canada locations are suspended until further notice right now. So you have to be aware of how am I going to collect my biometrics, which visa application centers am I going to be dealing with in order to have my process done. So now we have English tests. So some official test centers are closed until April 27 or until further notice. So this is something that you have to be aware of if you're in a circumstance where you will need to take a language test. So international students in Canada, you need to be aware of this. So courses of study being delivered online on an exceptional basis due to the COVID-19 will not affect your post-graduation work permit program eligibility. So what this means in a nutshell, because I think I will discuss this a little bit further as the presentation goes on, but in a nutshell, what this means is if you are in a situation where you're an international student here, you're taking your courses, and then suddenly you are being told that you can no longer attend classes, which I think is what's going on right now already, and your particular institution is making accommodation for taking classes online. Obviously, you start to think that as part of the requirements for post-graduation work permit, you need to have studied full-time in class and not online. So you start to wonder and think, how does this affect me? So if this affects you, That is to say, if it's an exceptional basis due to the COVID-19 that your particular program is delivered online, then you would be eligible. So this wouldn't apply to a situation where your course is naturally delivered online. Then this wouldn't apply to you because it's not an exceptional basis. With or without the COVID-19, that particular program was delivered online anyway, so you wouldn't be able to enjoy from this exception. So although there are specific instructions for urgent applications, additional documents for temporary residents in China, Iran, and South Korea, however, there are no significant expedited processing requirements is foreseen. So what this is talking about right now is they don't really, the IRCC right now doesn't have a general procedure to expedite processing requirements. So it's still left to the discretion of the IRCC. So this would apply to you if you have, for whatever grounds, to process your application or to request your application to be expedited and processed faster. Then it would really be left to the discretion of the IRCC officers. However, the IRCC is making some accommodation given the circumstance that we're dealing right now with the pandemic. So generally, IRCC is allowing 90 days to provide documents or to complete certain requirements. So say, for example, your medical examinations are, I believe, usually required for you to be done in 30 days. So due to this situation, you would be able to have 90 days to get the thing done and provide documents such as police certificates. So they're extending the time. So I've attached the link there for the COVID-19 general processing measure, so you can get more information about some of the changes and accommodations that IRCC is creating. Okay, so I'll try and speak a bit slower. So now we are dealing with the Canada Border Service agencies. I would make some time at the end of this presentation to take any questions. So just try to note your questions down, and then I'll answer all of the questions as I can at the end of the presentation, in case anyone's wondering. All right, so now we're talking about the Canadian Border Service Agency. So these are the government departments for the purpose of this presentation. They deal with removing people that are out of status or people that have breached immigration rules. So if there's anyone who's in a circumstance where they are running out of status or they are somewhat concerned that they may be removed, at least you can be rest assured that the CBSA at this point, they're not taking actions to remove people from the country, exception for criminal cases. So if you're in a situation where you're concerned about how to fix my my status because it's running out and I have to make this application, you can just always try to get it done, because now we have a bit more time that we can regularize any of our immigration processes. So we don't have to be concerned about being removed or anything like that. So that's less anxiety. And then other aspects of the removal processes is on hold at this point, including departure orders. So now I put the IRCC web link there for a reason, and specifically I want to urge people to use the IRCC web form. Now you can use it in circumstances where you're in a particular situation, or for example, you're in a particular situation and you don't see any of the government procedures right now that is catering to your particular situation, and you have questions like, for example, I'm supposed to arrive and start school at this certain date, but the country that I'm in right now, the borders are closed and the airlines are not operating. I'm not able to travel. What do I do? So it's always good to inform the IRCC ahead of time of your particular situation. You put the visa or the study permit that you're concerned with, and then you put a bit of an explanation, letting them know your current circumstance and the efforts that you may be taking to fix it. And you can use the IRCC web form for so many other reasons, to inform the immigration about updates, or just ask general questions, or let them know your particular circumstance as it applies to your status. Okay, so now we're talking about travel advisory. Air travel and border measures have been implemented by restricting non-essential international travels. So avoid all non-essential travels outside of Canada until further notice. This is the general advice that that the government is giving, because we are dealing with situations that are very uncertain. The border, we don't know how bad or better that situations will be. So right now, people are being advised to not leave the country if it's non-essential. And one of the major reasons why we're being warned of this is so you don't find yourself stuck outside of the country. Because right now, what we're seeing on the news, there are a lot of Canadians and permanent residents and temporary residents that are outside of the country, and they're not able to come back in because of the circumstance surrounding the pandemic. Avoid travels on cruise ships until further notice. The USA-Canada border closure to non-essential traffic is in effect right now, and is expected to go on for at least 30 days. So all travelers from outside Canada, you're being advised to self-isolate as soon as you arrive into the country. You can call healthcare professionals or the public health authority if you are exhibiting any symptoms. Describe your symptoms and then follow their instructions. So the whole idea of self-isolation is just so that we don't spread the virus any further. And these are the travel advisories that are being given right now. And they also urge to check your airlines, as I may have hinted earlier in the presentation. You check your airlines and see the status of your flights, and just keep yourself informed as to the newest and latest information surrounding this situation. So now we're starting to wonder, there are a lot of travel restrictions, there are a lot of border closures. How is this going to affect me as an international student outside of the country wanting to come in? Am I allowed to come in, or are these exemptions to coming into Canada for only Canadian citizens or permanent residents? So this was the situation before. Generally, temporary residents, that would include students and international students, were prohibited from boarding aircraft or flight to Canada. But now there were exemptions at that time. The exemptions were applied to foreign nationals traveling at the invitation of Canadian governments for the purpose of situations or circumstances related to the containment of COVID-19. Close family members of Canadian citizens were also allowed to come in. Close family members of Canadian permanent residents enjoyed from these exemptions and other situations. But the government introduced updates to these travel restrictions and some of the exemptions are those. So now, these restrictions will not apply to foreign nationals who have already committed to working, studying, or making Canada their homes. And travel by these individuals will be considered essential travel for land border restrictions. So what does this mean to apply for foreign nationals who have already committed to working, studying, or making Canada their home? So this will generally apply to people that have held a study permit, people that already have a study permit when this situation started. You see it further described down there where it says, the restriction includes international students who held a valid study permit or had been approved for a study permit when the travel restrictions took effect since March 18. So this way, you obviously show that you're committed to going to the school. You have your study permit, you have your work permit, or you're applying for one, or you have an admission. So all of this shows some sort of commitment. So you may be able to fall under this exception, even in a situation where you may not have a study permit, but you have your school admissions and you're applying for a study permit. Now, remember, all individuals entering from abroad must self-isolate for 14 days upon their arrival to Canada. That's important to emphasize. So, some policies of academic institutions. Now, this is a very important topic because you may find yourself in a circumstance that, okay, I'm able to go to Canada. I understand that I'm an international student outside or even inside of Canada. Travel is possible for me as far as coming into the country is concerned, and I'm able to enjoy my study permit benefits and privileges. So how do I continue with school? You have to go and stay informed as to the latest information concerning your particular academic institution. So you need to see, and this listed right here are some of the measures that some academic institutions are taking. some academic institutions, they have different policies from others. So you really need to be aware of the one or ones that you're concerned with. Some academic institutions have implemented distance learning. Some have implemented online classes. A lot of canceled in-person instructions, if not all. And same with cancellation of in-person examinations. So you need to really be aware of the particular policy for the school that you are in or that you are dealing with. You need to be informed and see what type of policies that they have in place. I know that certain academic institutions have introduced summer classes. Some colleges like Centennial and George Brown, I think they're introducing summer classes where you can study throughout the summer as well. So you just, the point being, you have to just be aware of what your particular institution has put in place. Government assistance. So you also need to be aware that there are certain government assistance in place right now due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, for example, I have a link right here to the Canada official page for coronavirus. This particular page has a lot of information as far as concerned with the changes in government policies, immigration, funding, and different areas of the government, and it's constantly updated. So I would urge you to have this web link in hand if you want to know of the latest policies or government assistance measures in place. There's also the Brazilian consular assistance. You can contact them and find what type of information that they can provide to you for Brazilians. And we have the Canada's Economic Response Plan, which is very important. Now, I had prepared before to speak a bit more on the Canada's Economic Response Plan, but they introduced somewhat of a different plan just yesterday, I believe. And it's quite lengthy, but I've attached the link to this new plan. If you follow this link right here, you will be able to see the current information on how and what measures the government has taken as far as economic plans for even international students or workers and people affected by people that have been laid off from work, people that can't go to school. And I know there are a lot of questions about how can I study, or how can I work if my school is not in session anymore? Does that mean a scheduled break? Can I work full time, or do I have to do the 20 hours? I would answer those questions, and some of the other questions is in my appendix 1. It's part of the document that I will disclose to you at the end of this presentation. It has a list of common questions and answers that you might find very helpful. So we are urging people to have travel insurance coverage for COVID-19 or travel insurance coverage generally if you do find yourself in a situation where you have to travel. Here are some insurance companies, and you have to be aware of emergency medical and then care benefits. So what you need to do is, if you absolutely have to travel, an essential travel, then you need to be covered and get as much information or coverage as you can before you embark on that trip. If you need to cancel your trip, there are measures and accommodations in place for that as well. So at this point, I will take questions, and I've attached an appendix A. It's the frequently asked questions, and we'll talk about that as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Naga. This is Carolina here. So I will read a little bit of, we have 3 questions so far. So the first one here is from Felipe Teixeira. The effect of the pandemic in the currency exchange for my country is being significant. Is there any other option similar to OSAP for international students? Do different tuition fees and paying only the minimum amount affect their scores or immigration process in any way?
Okay, so the connection was breaking a little bit while you asked that question. And if I'm getting it right, is someone is in a situation where they're suffering economic disadvantages or detriments as a result of the COVID-19 virus, and they're trying to see what other economic assistance is available to them as to OSAP or all of these other things. Am I right?
Yes, correct. So if like deferring tuitions or paying only the minimum amount would affect their scores on the immigration process.
Okay, so now that's a difficult question in the sense that it depends on these other institutions that are concerned in that kind of circumstance. So, for example, OSAP is generally not applicable to international students. You have to see if that's something that the government has created accommodation for, and then you have to also see what the school's policy is as well. So, for this particular question, especially given that the new economic plan has just come out yesterday, it's going to take, it's quite uncertain at this point, but I believe what you can do is contact all of the relevant institutions and see what accommodation that they have. Because, like I said, the situation as far as economic relief as it was 3 days ago is not the same thing anymore as of yesterday. So it's ever changing, and we want to see what the current thing is. So you really advise to contact these bodies and see what the current situation is on that basis.
Thank you. So the other question is, if the postgrad is canceled as an impact of COVID, and you already have a study permit, after you change colleges, do you have to apply again to update the college information?
Okay, so if the postgrad is cancelled, I want to understand what you mean specifically. If it means if the postgraduation...
If the college cancels that specific course she applied for...
Oh, I see.
It has to change institutions.
Okay, so if you have to change institutions, then you will definitely have to update your situation with the IRCC. So pretty much what that means is we're in a situation where you are taking a particular course that you needed to take to complete your program, and you're expecting that if I complete this course, I'm going to be able to apply for my post-graduation work permit. But now this course is no longer offered for reasons due to the COVID-19 by the particular academic institution. What can I do? If I switch to a different institution that offers the program, what does that mean for me? Well, first things first, you have to get to the point where you actually graduate, right? So once you get to the point where you've graduated, which, as we all know, is one of the minimum requirements to apply for a post-graduation work permit. So once you're graduated and you have all of your transcripts, you're going to be able to explain via web form, or put it as a package, as part of your package for your application. You have to explain why you had to cancel a complete school because of so and so reasons, and then you had to go to a different school. So if you're able to make that application, that explanation, then you should be fine. I've read so much as far as the IRCC implementations are going. They are open to explanations, as long as you can show that you completed your study full-time. If it was online or in person, you have to have done it full-time. And remember, you have to fall into that special exception, that is the reason why you had to switch the schools, that's A, and B, the reason why you had to maybe have taken this program online, it was directly due to negative impacts from the COVID-19. That's an exception. That's a particular circumstance, and you should be able to apply for your post-graduation work permit even in that circumstance.
Thank you. So going back to that first question, sorry, he just asked again, if the college, going back to the deferral of the payments, the relevant institutions would be college, university, or the bank. So you have to go to the education institution, right, to see their policy on payment.
Yes, you have to. So what I'm understanding is if the school is deferring payments, then you have to go to them and help them fully explain what that means. I don't think it would be a problem for deferral of payments as far as your application for a study permit goes, or extension. I don't see that it's an issue. Again, it's all about putting it down into explanation and getting as much information as you can from the college. You have to definitely get them to provide you some sort of written confirmation, maybe a letter, which is what the immigration has advised as well, explaining your circumstance. And then you can also put an extra explanation saying how it has affected you, and then put in your application. I don't see that it would be a problem. But again, you have to just get informed. Go to the school and ask them for a letter and for the current situation, and then see where that leads you.
Perfect, thank you. So we're going to another question from Mariana. So you mentioned that there's 90 days to add any documents in your IRCC applications. If you're applying for PGWP in April and you have to apply for kids permits extension, but the passports are not valid and the consulates are closed for passport updates, should she do the application anyway and then add new information on passports later? Is that the way that works?
Well, I mean, in that circumstance, generally, like she had rightly mentioned, they give you 90 days to provide all of these documents. IRCC has also stated, and it's somewhere in one of the links that I sent, if you're in a circumstance where even those 90 days are not enough, you have to be able to contact them via IRCC web form, because they are not going to follow up with you. So it becomes incumbent on you to get as much information. For example, if the consulate is closed, you print out a copy from their website saying that they're closed, and you request further extension. That's what you would need to do in that circumstance. And the IRCC's policy is to put a hold on it, and then they will revisit it, I believe, in 60 or 90 days, it being your application. So I would say you could put in the application, of course, just so you can show them that you are doing what you can to meet the requirements, and that you started the application, and then this is the reason why you don't have all of the complete information, and these are the reasons why it might take you more than 90 days to produce all of the information. And I think if you do that, you should be fine with RCC.
Thank you. So another question we have here is, in case of the postgraduate work permit extension, the PGWP, if will CIC extend the partner's work permit without the pay slips, or if they're flexible, somehow any flexibilize the partner's work permit extension, because people can't really find jobs right now.
Okay, so the question is whether or not you can still extend your partner's work permit if he doesn't have the pay stubs. So that would apply similarly, right? Again, you would have more days on extension of time to provide what it is that you would need to prove that he has been working full-time, or he has been meeting whatever requirements that he needs to meet for that particular application. So you have 90 days. You create an explanation to the immigration as to why you don't have a pay stub. And it could also be that, I've been laid off as a result. So you need to put the explanation. But again, all of these things are based on exceptional basis. So you have to be able to show that you've been directly impacted by COVID-19. So it's not a situation that you can now say that, okay, I'm unable to provide pay stubs because of a separate reason. It has to be clearly that you haven't been able to provide this as due to COVID-19. So if you are laid off from work, you can clearly show that, hey, I'm not a non-essential worker right now. My business is closed, or my employer is closed. Therefore, I'm not able to work. So again, we're dealing with very uncertain times, and IRCC is still coping with changing circumstances and new circumstances. But in that situation, I would advise that if you are in a position where you're running out of status, you should put in that application, put in whatever supporting documents that you currently have, and put an explanation with evidence.
Thank you. So we have another question here. Sorry, there's a lot of questions coming up, and as expected, but the next one is, if the government will give international students any sort of financial support, like they're doing for citizens and permanent residents, or if they release any information or mention any deduction on college fees due to the current situation.
Okay, so I think the government did announce what the economic relief would be. Again, I don't really want to speak much on this because the latest announcement only came out yesterday. I actually saw it this morning, and it's quite lengthy. I have attached a link to it, in my PowerPoint presentation, and that would have a lot more answers as to what the current situation is. and if the government has created any type of accommodation for international students as well.
Okay, perfect. So next question is, so I currently graduate and I have 1 year of work permit, but due to this current situation, it's really tough to find a job. So is there any way to extend the work permit due to like job availability in the market right now?
Okay, so that would depend as to the current circumstance you're in. So if you're in a position where you have spent a lot of your time on your post-graduation work permit. Say, for example, you have 1 year post-grad work permit, and you're now in the 6th month. Coronavirus started in the 6th month, and now I can't get a job. That's a different situation, because even if you did get a job at that time, it's hard for you to show that you would have met the requirements of working for 1 full year, because you only had 4 months. So that might be a different circumstance. Now, what I would advise somebody in a situation as that which the question was just asked, what you want to do is you should document every effort that you have made to apply for a job. So if you're applying for certain jobs, you document if the kind of jobs that you apply for based on your study are the kinds that are shut down now, you have to document that as well. And I don't see that IRCC has provided a very clear-cut answer to that situation. But again, they are creating a lot of levity in terms of accommodation for people in situations like that. Again, you can always apply for an extension, and you would be placed on an implied status at that point, and then you can work for the rest of the month, or at least still try to show that you're trying to get a job. And I believe that it will depend on the latest IRCC announcements on that. But again, I think what you can do for now is to just document every effort and be ready to put an application for extension with explanations as to why you need to extend the period.
Thank you. So next question is, my stud permit will expire in July, but I still have the 2nd year to go. Should I apply for an extension now?
Okay, so your study permit would expire in July. My understanding is that your academic program is probably one which will extend past July before it's completed. I think, yes, you can apply. Generally, it's you need to apply at least 4 months to the time of your expiration date, and certainly before the expiration date. So I believe it's okay to apply now. You're in a circumstance where you would be making that kind of application without the COVID-19 situation. So as long as you have all of the documents that you need, particularly focus on getting a letter or some sort of document from your school to show that you're still registered and your program is going to extend past July. And then I don't see any particular issue with putting the application now in March.
Thank you. So similar question. The college canceled the summer semester, would you be able to apply for for the visa extension?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again? It was the connection just broke a little bit.
I'm sorry. So if the college canceled the summer semester, would I be available to apply for a student visa extension?
Okay, so this is similar to the previous question. Yes, I believe you would be able to, because now you're in a situation where you fall into an exceptional basis that's due to the COVID-19. So you can show the government from documents from your school that the school has canceled the summer program, or canceled any type of program really, or semester. And due to this, the cancellation was done as a result of the COVID-19, and because of that, I've not been able to meet the requirements of studying or completing my study. So I need to extend my study permit to allow me to do this. I believe you should be able to make an application. The fact is that a lot of people are going to find themselves in situations where they have to extend their study permits due to the coronavirus as a direct result to their academic programs not being offered or done in the regular way.
Thank you. So next question is, my school is still organized. I don't have classes right now because my school is still organizing itself to have online courses. Can I work full time? Is this considered a break?
Okay, that's an important question. Generally, you can't work full time. You can only work full time during a scheduled break. That is the key. The break has to be scheduled. As far as the immigration policy is, you must work 20 hours while the maximum of 20 hours while school is in session. And when school is on a scheduled break, you can work full time on or off campus. But the question is it a scheduled break? And I don't believe it is. It would be a scheduled break because the coronavirus was not scheduled. So it's something that they had to take measures. So I would be careful with working full time during this season because school was closed down due to coronavirus.
Yeah, thank you. I read about something about this, that there's like a full explanation on what is a schedule break and what's not. And yeah, based on understanding, I think this is not really.
Yes.
So next question is, I have just extended my study permit for my second program, which expires in November 2020. However, I haven't applied for the extension of my temporary resident visa that expires March 31st. I have no plans of going out of the country. Is it mandatory to apply for a temporary residence visa extension?
Okay, so if the temporary resident visa would allow you to travel into the country when you leave. So if you don't have any intention to travel out of the country, it's not mandatory to extend your temporary resident visa. However, you just need to make sure you have a valid status by way of your study permit. That's the answer to that.
Thank you. So we have one last question.
Okay.
I was on my scheduled academic break and I was laid off due to COVID-19. Am I eligible to CERB?
Okay. So can you please say that again? It keeps breaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I feel like all the internets are kind of like overwhelmed right now.
I know. Yeah.
I was on my scheduled academic break, so he was working 40 hours a week on a scheduled break,
okay.
But then he got laid off because of COVID. Is he eligible for CERB for any help from the government?
Okay. Oh, yes. Again, would have to take a look at what the current situation is right now. The economic relief funds was updated and announced yesterday. So I would advise that you take a look at the link that I have in my materials, which will be provided to you, and just take a look at what the current situation is right there. It's a very comprehensive, so it covers different circumstances for different people and what is available to them or what's not available to them and how they can make that how they can get the relief funds and all of those things. So I would just urge you to take a look at that. It's attached in the PowerPoint slide.
Thank you. So is there, if anyone has any more questions, here. Okay, one more question. My graduation was postponed due to COVID-19 and we will be now starting in October. However, my student permit expires before this date. What should I do? I think this was also kind of brought up before, but...
Yes. Okay, yeah, it was. Similar question was asked. The graduation was postponed due to COVID-19. It would be in October. However, my study permit expires before this date. What should I do? Okay, so you have to, first of all, check to see if you can still make that application for postgraduate work permit because I believe the regulation is, the requirement is that you must have completed your full-time course, not necessarily that you must have attended a graduation. So if you're able to get something from the school saying that you've completed your course, in a full-time, continuous, and you're able to get that confirmation, then perhaps you should be applying for a post-graduation work permit. And if you absolutely are not eligible, then you should probably be applying to extend your status here.
Perfect. And one last question. Could the spouse work permit, since COVID has postponed the college, could the spousal work permit, can they start working before college starts?
That's a very interesting question. So the requirement is that you must be studying full-time. You must be in session to allow the spouse with the work permit to work. I'm not sure exactly how that would impact. I guess that's something that we would have to definitely just pose the question directly to the immigration and see what measures they have there. Because naturally, you would not be able to work until school is in session. But then again, I guess start with if the college hasn't started yet, in terms that it's not scheduled to start, or then you can't generally. But if it has a scheduled start and it was postponed as a result of COVID-19, then I think the safest bet at this point would be to reach out to IRCC. You can reach out via web form and get some answers to this in writing, because it says you want to be sure and it's safer for you to have something in writing from the immigration answering this question directly before you go into work.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I would like to thank everyone that joined us here today. On behalf of the Brazil-Canadian Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank Naga for his time and for this presentation. I hope that it clarified some of your questions in terms of immigration issues. We know that this is an ongoing matter, and then every day they're releasing new information and new analysis on how this is going to impact international students. And we'll keep you informed. As soon as we get new updates, we'll try to organize maybe another webinar in a few weeks with more updates as they come. So I kindly ask you to keep following us on our social media, keep following us on the social media and our events, and you'll be happy to answer any further questions that you might have. As mentioned before, the presentation and all the FAQ sheet that he prepared, as well as this webinar, will be posted in our website later today, and we'll send you all registered guests the link to access all this information, as well as a little survey to check and to let us know how this went and all other questions that you might have in terms of this subject. So thank you again for being here with us today, and I look forward to engaging with all very in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Free socks.
Brasileiro Show, CJIQ 88.3 FM.